All right, can you tell me how many of my typing sessions you've seen before?
Probably around 5.
Okay, cool. And when did you first, how long have you known about or been looking into cognitive functions?
Um, Maybe like a year and a half, but I think I first seen it in like high school,
Okay,
which was like 6 years ago.
cool. So, I'm going to come at this from a different direction first than I usually do, I guess, today. Can you tell me what you think about astrology?
It's fun.
Okay.
What I personally think, or what I think of the subject in general.
Well, uh, are those two things different?
Yeah,
Okay, can you just
I'd say.
can you give me an example of each kind of those? One of each of those kinds?
To do with this particular subject.
Astrology.
Yeah.
So can you give me an example of you think what you think about it personally and then what you think about it
Hmm.
generally that makes clear the
Um,
distinction you're drawing between personal and general?
well, generally, I'd just say it's not something that's scientifically backed. Um, Something that a lot of people some people seem to believe a lot. But me personally, I think it's fun, but I don't know whether I say I believe in it
Okay.
per
You
se.
would your
I
answer
wouldn't say
be
it's got anything
I'm sorry.
concrete.
Would your answer be the same for tarot as it is for astrology?
Yeah,
Okay.
I say belief plays a factor, like whether the person believes it or not. But it can just be fun.
Now,
You don't have to necessarily believe in it.
if you had to pick one to believe in, would you pick ghosts or Sasquatches?
I don't know what Sasquatches is.
Bigfoot? It's
Ah,
kind of like
okay.
Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, those kind of things, or ghosts.
Um, well, I think the way people see ghosts, they see them as like people, don't they? I think a lot of people seem to see ghosts as like your personality lives on after you're dead, which I don't believe. So I'd say I think I'd believe like a lot more like something like some dinosaur looking thing in the sea or a big monkey, you know, compared to ghosts.
Okay. So, do you think that anything happens? Do you have an opinion about what does happen when you die? Or you have no opinion about it, or what?
Um, I think it's like energy, it just continues on and you exist, but you might not exist as a human being and you might not even be alive. So you probably won't have a personality or anything like that.
Okay, so, but some part of you would still exist as you?
Yeah, you might be all over the place, like scattered
You're gonna
a bit.
scatter my life energy across to different things that need some or something?
No, just like because like atoms and things, don't they? They just like they're not necessarily alive, they just exist. So your atoms would just like disperse when you die, I guess, when your body breaks down,
Okay.
and then you just go off a bit everywhere.
So, do you think all the you that there is you that links to atoms?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. What about a shared anecdote that you have with somebody else? Let's say you and your mom both remember both remember that time you went to the beach and you got sand in your eyes and cried when you were a little kid. Okay, both remember this.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
it's an object that exists that you can both reference, but it has no direct atomic link, does it?
Um, I don't know. Could you repeat the question? I'm a bit nervous.
I'm just curious to see how much like how much meowing you want to do about stuff. So never mind. I'm gonna move on to the next question. That question anyway was about
Yeah.
nuclear powered nuclear powered memories. Whether or not
Yeah.
memories have a link to physicality or not. But it doesn't really matter. The point is, let me
It
go on to
could
some.
be.
Okay, do you have
It
an?
could do because um your memories are physical in a sense, like it's energy, isn't it, in your brain, like between the neurons and things. So I guess it has some physicality. But we know memories aren't very um realistic, I guess. They can be interpreted differently.
Okay, well, what about the song
It's not
"Row, Row, Row Your Boat"? It
all about it.
exists, right? But it doesn't.
Mm,
Even though neither you nor I is currently singing it,
mm.
it has a distinct identity that's not dependent on our perspective upon it. And something that's not "Row, Row, Row Your Boat" has the wrong melody to be called "Row, Row, Row Your Boat." Row, row, row your boat, right? Well,
I
that's
mean, it
that's a
exists,
hard
but
title to say, isn't it?
some people might not know it. So would that mean it doesn't exist to them, depending on their perspective?
Okay, but if you're talking about this object independent of those who do know about it, does it have an identity independent of any of the knowers? Or is its identity manifest by the virtue of knowing it and by multiple independent
Y-
parties?
Yeah, the latter one, I'd say. Its identity, it needs to be known
Okay,
for it to exist.
cool.
To me.
It's not just to you, it's actually for everybody that's true.
Oh, okay, sweet.
but that's nice FE padding there. I appreciate that. Okay, so do you know? Tell me about something, an object that you have more important, you place more importance into than it rationally, quote unquote, deserves. So you,
Something of you sentimentally, perhaps,
yeah, 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 something sentimental that you get, you put extra importance into, even though it doesn't have value to other people they see.
yeah. So, yeah, of course I do. Why?
Can you tell me about one of them?
Can I tell you about one? Okay. Um, mm, I don't know. I've got this like candle that's actually right in front of me. It's just a candle. It's got, that live, laugh, love kind of generic thing on it. But so I think many people think it was trash, but I've had it for such a long time that it kind of holds aesthetic value to me. So I think I value it,
Now,
no matter
do you
what
think
other people think.
you've had it for a very long time in part because you don't use it very often?
Could be, yeah. It's not. I've not used it for its function, despite it being a candle. It's just been sat there. I think I originally got it because I liked the generic thing on it. So I don't know.
Okay, cool. Now let me ask you about your sleeping habits. Are you have a regular bedtime? Does it vary? And about how many hours of sleep do you think you need a night?
Um, Probably about 7.5 to 8. If it goes over 8, I think I start to feel worse than if I'd had any sleep at all. Like I'd rather feel tired than lethargic. Like it's almost like your body's dragging along throughout the day. Whereas if you have no sleep, you can function to a degree. Um, I'd say if it weren't for something needing me, like my job, for instance, my sleep schedule is pretty much non-existent. I'd sleep until I wake up, really. It's because things demand me to have a certain schedule in order to be able to function.
Sure.
So it's
And
like a job.
on those occasions when you don't get enough sleep and you
Mm,
have to push through anyway, is
mm.
it are you definitely going to catch up the next night, or might you go even a little further than that and push it for a few nights?
I'd push it for a few nights. I used to do it all the time in college.
Okay.
Have like 3 hours sleep.
Do you take naps during the day after you've done that?
Um, I didn't used to. No, I can't seem to fall asleep in daytime. It has to be a certain environment.
When you are falling asleep, do you like to have it silent, or do you like to have something playing in the background?
Silent.
All right. If you had to sacrifice either dark or silent when you're going to sleep, which one's gonna, which one are you gonna be able to sleep despite the absence of?
I'd be able to sleep in daylight, I think, with some noise, perhaps. So I'd sacrifice the darkness, I think, for some silence.
Okay. Do you ever sleep with so-called white noise on? That is to say, just a fan blowing at neutral temperature.
I do, yeah, I
Okay.
do. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
I'll get really irritated by all the random sounds.
Okay. And the white noise just kind of they get lost in the mix.
Yeah, buffers it out.
Okay. Cool. Um, can you tell me, from your own perspective on yourself, are you more reliant on your experience or on your instincts to know something?
Mm.
Oh, hold on one second. I'm gonna have to talk to my dad
Can you
here.
come up with an example?
Yeah, sure.
Just to,
Hey, Dad, I'm with a client right now. Can I talk to you at?
It's okay. I should go get my hearing aids.
Okay. He's gonna come back here in a second. um. Yeah, sure. So if you're relying on your experience, um, well, like when I when I cooked this cook in the bag pork thing the first time, I didn't
mm,
know that you had to put it inside of some other thing because it was going to leak. I thought the you cook it in the bag means you just put the bag in the oven and it's not going to leak. And it did leak
mm,
and made a mess. And then the next time, I knew not to do that. That's because I rely on my experience to know things more than my instincts. My instincts should have said, this bag doesn't look that sturdy.
mm,
Or something like that.
mm. Using the example of cooking to go off, in the past, I usually just wing things. I usually do just don't really look back on experience, I think. I'm just like, that looks about right. It feels right, so like, let's see if it works.
Okay, cool. Um, if you had to break down the task of cleaning a kitchen sink into exactly 4 steps, how would you break it down?
I've heard this question.
Okay, hold on one second. Here comes my dad again. Hey, I'm with a client until 11. Can I talk to you after that? Great, thanks.
No, it's nothing important.
Okay, cool. All right.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, breaking the task of cleaning a sink into exactly 4 steps. I've never asked about cleaning a sink before. I mean, you've heard this kind of
Yeah, I
question.
don't think I've heard that. Yeah. Um, Grab the sponge, put the dish soap on, wipe the sink with the sponge, and rinse it.
Okay. Can you solve the problem of birds eating eating people's vegetables?
Put something they don't like in the vegetables, but something you might like.
Okay. I'm assuming they're still on the plants, though, is what I'm saying. They're eating them like
Oh, they're on the plate.
in your garden, not from your
Okay.
plate.
Put something they'd prefer to eat nearby.
And so
perhaps.
give them a preferable alternative to your
Yeah,
vegetables
so the,
by having them eat
yeah.
other of your vegetables that you've designated to.
No, it could be like birdseed or something.
Oh, I see.
Are you talking about in the present moment, or if I was thinking for like future reference, just
Well,
put some over there in the garden they prefer.
the local British city council of advisory affairs has come to you, and they've said, "Hi, we got a problem here in the city. A bird's eating our vegetables, and we need you to tell us how to solve it."
Okay. Mm. Um, I don't know. I feel like I've exhausted my options. I won't want to hurt the birds. Just make something preferable that like you can't waste, that you don't care about wasting. That the bird would like bird seed or something.
Okay.
Make a little bird feeding thing
Okay. What if
where they've got a place to go to eat.
somebody stands up in the city council meeting and says, "But won't that just incentivize the birds to even further come to our yards?"
Yeah, they'd come to your yards, but they won't want to be interested in your vegetables anymore, right? I mean, if they've got something better to eat, why would they want to touch your vegetables?
Well, I mean, now that they've got this endless supply of birdseed, they're just going to multiply until they exhaust it, and then we'll have huge hordes of them descending on our crops.
Hmm. Cover up the crops, so the birds can't get to them, perhaps.
I'd suggest put up a sign that says, "Birds are not allowed to eat these."
Yeah.
That'd probably be pretty effective. For the birds that can read, anyway. Okay.
What if you had like, what if you had like a sample part of vegetables where you put something in that they didn't like birds was unhealthy. Maybe you killed a few, but like the rest saw, hey, there's something wrong with those vegetables. We shouldn't eat that. And you did that every so often. Would it act as a deterrent, maybe?
That might. You could get cats, and if the birds are too
Okay.
large for house cats, then maybe you could get cougars
Mm,
or mountain lions or something, and bring them
yeah.
in as a natural solution to this problem. Of course,
Hmm.
the mountain lions may maul your children, but it's a small price to pay for fresh vegetables. Um, sorry, got a little
Solve one problem by making another.
got a little off topic there, a little off task. Okay, so let
All
me
right.
ask you some TI questions now, which are
Mm.
your deductive reasoning questions. I'll start with the day of the week one. So today is Thursday. Given that today is Thursday, can you tell me what yesterday's tomorrow's yesterday was?
Sorry. Can you repeat that?
Given that today is
Today's
Thursday,
Thursday.
can you tell me what yesterday's tomorrow's yesterday was in relationship to today?
Wednesday? The day before?
No, it's Tuesday. Yesterday is
What?
Tuesday. Tomorrow is Wednesday.
Yesterday's
Yesterday is
yesterday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
All right, okay.
tomorrow's yesterday. So the last two are irrelevant. They cancel each other out. So it's just two steps back, and two steps back from today is Tuesday. Okay,
Mm.
let me try this kind. Can you tell me who my mother's sister's daughter is in relationship to me?
Mother's sister's daughter. I don't have many of those family members, so is it a niece? I think you call them.
It's your cousin.
Would it be a niece? Cousin. Okay. I don't have many cousins.
Okay. How about if there are three pogos, three pogos and a dollop, and there are in one jar 2 dollops. Let me start
3
over.
pogos and a dollop.
Yeah, and there are in every jar there are 2 dollops. How many pogos are there in a jar?
What are dollops and what are we talking about?
it,
Can't follow.
it doesn't matter. Okay, that's fine. So I'm just going to ask one more kind of TI question here, and then we'll move on to some extrovert intuition stuff. If only people who like sandwiches visit Greenland, and I do not visit Greenland, is it necessarily the case that I do not like sandwiches? I'll repeat the question. If only people who like sandwiches visit Greenland, and I do not visit Greenland, is it necessarily the case that I do not like sandwiches?
No.
Okay. Can you explain why not?
Because it's a generalization to assume that people who like those sandwiches only visit Greenland.
Okay.
I would say it's a fact.
Okay, well, it, it was stated slightly differently. It wasn't that people who eat sandwiches only visit Greenland. It was that only people who eat sandwiches visit Greenland. But that's fine. It doesn't matter. Okay, let's go on to the next thing here. I would like to play. Well, that's why they always say "meagity meagity meow." Have you ever seen that one before?
I might have.
Okay, so I'll tell you a little anecdote, and then you sum it up for me. So the example I give is, I just bought this book because this amazing picture on the cover. But then I started reading it, and it's terrible. And someone says, well, that's why they always say, don't judge a book by its cover.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay, so now, you can either come up with your own little saying, or you can use an existing little saying in answering this. Here's the anecdote. I was going outside to mow the lawn the other day, and I got my everything all set up, and that's when I realized that the lawnmower was out of gas, and so was the gas can, and I had to put everything away and go get gas before I came back and took it all out again. How sad for me. That's my story. Now you sum it up for me with the meagity meow part.
Well, I guess you didn't prep everything.
Okay. All right. Can you make it into a
Didn't know
general?
that's much of an anecdote.
Can you make it into a general rule that everybody should learn from, or that is an example of which that everybody it could be exemplified in other ways, but it's an example of that general rule.
There's an anecdote I'm thinking of. Prepare or prepare to fail. I think it's something like that.
Okay, cool. I would also suggest maybe look before you leap. In other words, before you get all the stuff out, check to make sure you've got gas in the can, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, can you give me an anecdote of some sort intended to elicit that kind of response from me? We'll switch roles here.
Okay. Trying to think of. Hmm. I'm trying to think of ones that we haven't already done.
Well, what about an actual thing that happened to you recently? Like, I mean, you go, oh, come on, self. You messed up.
Okay. The immediate one I think of is I left the house, I locked up, I went to turn away and, go on my way to work, and then looked down and realised I still had my slippers on. So I had to turn around and knock on the door for someone to come open and unlock the door for me to put some shoes on. What would be the anecdote you get from that? I feel like it already ties into what we've already done.
It would be like, when you slip outside in your slippers, you're slipping up.
Okay.
How's that for a saying? All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let me do the other kind of story question or thing that's kind of like this, which is I'm going to give you a long sentence and I want you to collapse it down into a short version of itself, okay?
Mm.
So the long one's going to have a lot of redundancies in it and kind of repeating itself. So you want to take out everything that's not distinct and just
Summarize it.
you summarize it. Yeah. Okay, here we go. For people who are really into calligraphy, which pen they use when they write something down on a piece of paper in order to communicate the information via written text is a choice that is fraught with many considerations, such as the size of the line, the darkness or color of the ink, the angle of the tip, and many other things that are known to and important to people who are into calligraphy that other people might not know about.
Okay. So people who within calligraphy, you can use the darkness of the ink and use other character determine things from other by looking at other details within the writing, perhaps.
Right.
I'm nervous, so I just forget what you say immediately after you said it.
Okay. Fine. The gist of it was basically calligraphists, when they choose a pen, think about a lot of stuff.
Mm. Okay, yeah, I should say that.
Okay, so now let's play World Mic Power. You've got World Mic Power. You've got 30 seconds to tell the world advice that you think applies to everybody, and it gets translated into every language and broadcast into everyone's ears.
I've got 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Damn.
You mean you can talk for up to 30 seconds. You don't your advice doesn't have to use the full 30 seconds.
Mm. I'd say live and let live. I think it's a pretty common one, but it sums it all pretty well. I don't really know because I can't force people to take my advice. So I'd just say, if I were to give you advice, then say live and let live.
Okay. And what does that mean to you in terms of how a person ought to behave if you were to be specific about what it says they ought to do or not do?
To not overextend your power or your autonomy over another's autonomy, to not affect another person's autonomy with your own. If you can avoid it, but obviously sometimes it's necessary. Like animals take lives in order to live themselves.
Okay.
But yeah, sometimes people do it more than necessary.
So what's going to bother you more if somebody tells you what to do or if somebody tells you what not to do?
When someone tells me what not to do.
Okay. And what bothers you more when somebody tells you what not to do or when somebody tells you what to say or when somebody tells you what not to say?
What bothers me more, someone telling me what to say or someone telling me what not to say.
Or somebody telling you what not to do, but you've already picked over the other do one. So now you've got the two saying options or the doing one. I should have done. I should have asked this question differently, but that's how I
It's
present
all right.
it.
Um, Showing me how to do it differently, telling me how to do it differently,
Okay,
rather than telling me you shouldn't do this. Do it like this.
so you'd prefer they'd say that.
Yeah.
Okay, but what if they're talking about what you're saying? If somebody tells you, say this, does it bug you? Or if somebody says, don't say that, does it bug you? Or is it not bug you?
It bugs me. It bugs me more if someone says, you shouldn't say this. I prefer it if they rephrased it to, you should say something like this,
Okay, so
in order to imply that I shouldn't be saying it.
in both cases, you want them to tell you what to do
Yeah.
or say, and not what not to do or not to say. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's because is it like more rude or what's
I
your
think it's kind of like, well, for one, there's a better way to say it. Like you could just say it, this is what you should do, and you're still implying that the person shouldn't do that because you're veering off and giving them another option. And you still express your opinion and things. It's just in a way that can be received better because it's positive, I think, more positive, rather than you're just honing in on flaws and pointing them out like you shouldn't do this.
okay?
That's what it seems like to me.
Um, okay. So, do you have any creative outlets like either writing, singing, dancing, acting, painting, drawing, making movies, anything like that?
Yeah, I journal a lot, write poetry and things often in like a venti kind of manner, and not necessarily because I want it to be artsy, but I just want to use it, I guess. A sketch, perhaps, but yet again, not because I want it to be perfect or anything. I just like want an outlet, I guess.
Okay, so when you're writing venting style poetry, does it sound like, oh my god, you guy at the store, you were such an asshole? Is it like that kind of venting?
Kind of, yeah.
Cool.
But like in a very poetic kind of cryptic way. So like you might not even think I'm talking about the guy at the store,
Okay.
but it gets across how you're feeling.
Okay. And do you feel like it's important for you to share what you create with other people, or are you perfectly fine with it remaining private?
I think it's important to share it, yeah, because someone might feel understood by it, how you feel, because the human experience and things. Someone might relate in some way or other. Even if they don't know what you're talking about, they might understand how you feel and feel understood.
Okay. Do you make an effort to make the things you create public?
Yeah, I do. I have it. That's pretty much what I use like my social media for.
Okay.
Like, I've not got that many followers, but I do post poetry on there and things.
Cool. All right. If we could pause for 1 second here. Oh no, I do have Sprite in front of my face. It was here the whole time. I kept looking over here for my cup of coffee, but it was on this side of me. Stupid
Do I have
Eric.
instances of that?
Do
Is
you?
that a question?
No, that was actually just happened right there. But do you? Do you have instances of things like that happening?
Yeah, I had one today when I was at the mall. I think my mum's in the ESFJ. Um, she spots like things straight away, and we were looking for like an ATM, and she spotted one in a store. But I kind of already knew where one was, so I wasn't really looking around for an ATM. I was like, I know where one is, so I'll go there. Um, so I missed it. Like we walked right across all this grass screening, and she'd seen it and gone, "There's one. We're just going in and get one." I would have completely missed that.
Okay.
That happens quite a lot, like with the slipper situation. Like I'll walk out the door with the wrong shoes on.
Okay. How are you about procrastination? Do you procrastinate on stuff?
I do, yeah. I think out of fear of failure. not living up to standards or something.
Okay, so does that result in you making a rush job at the end to get it done, or does it result in you actually not getting it accomplished?
The result is I just don't get it accomplished, usually. It can be the death of me.
Okay, well, I think if you never do it, you were never really
Mm.
procrastinating, right? It's like you
Well, I
gotta.
wanted to do it, so I
Okay,
was procrastinating on doing it. Like I could have a deadline, for instance. So like it doesn't matter. I have to do it, but like I won't do it, or I'll do it. I'll try to do it very last minute,
and what'll
and
happen if you
I'm not
don't?
going to
When
get it
you
done.
and so do you experience consequences when that occurs?
Yeah, like not getting the opportunity that I wanted. Like for instance, I wanted to be a copper a while ago, a couple of years ago, and I had to do this whole like interview session. It was only like the actual resume, like the writing, like essay bit. And I just like postponed it to the last minute, and then like yeah, plus the consequence was that I didn't even get past the first stage, and that happens quite a bit sometimes.
What were you supposed to write an essay about?
Just random questions. I don't even remember what it was. Like come up with an example of this. So you had to try and make up a bullshit example.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah,
Um, do you
and write a
feel
little essay about it.
do you have a vision for yourself in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, or you don't think that far ahead?
I do, but it's not very specific. I just have like an ideal version. Like, I want to like travel and things. Like get a little camper. I don't know how, but just get a camper and go travel. Have a little cat, maybe. I don't know.
If you had the
Trying not to think
ability,
far ahead.
let's say there was a you get a letter in the mail one day and it's from the Queen of England and she says, "You did such a great service for the country of Britain the other day when you helped that old lady across the street or something, and we caught it on
Mm,
security camera. We were watching, and we have now elevated you to having a title. Now you're a duchess. Would you want to be a
mm,
duchess?
no, that's too much responsibility. I don't even want the title. Like, what's the point?
What do
It's
you
just a title, isn't it?
what do you think duchesses have to do?
I don't think it's about what they have to do. It's just like because they're in the face of the public because they have a title. The title gives you responsibility in a sense
Okay, and it
because
makes
people are
it makes
watching
you
you or something.
interesting to the media to look to talk to you or something.
Yeah, and people.
Okay. Do you think that there would be any advantages to being a duchess that you would like and want to take advantage of?
I don't know whether I like it, but I can see why someone would want that kind of um influence. Yeah, because they could pose an influence and they might like that and they could manipulate it.
Okay.
So
Do you want? Are you seeking uh, more visibility, more eyes on you, more of an audience, or is it not a primary concern for you?
I I don't know because I'd like to be appreciated, by a number of people. And I'm sure everyone likes like getting compliments and things or being applauded or something. But at the same time, um, that also opens you up to the bad things, criticism and things like that, and responsibility, especially if you've got that kind of in that limelight for a while.
Okay. So, do you ever get negative feedback on your existing social media? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Um, Not yet. I haven't got any negative feedback. Um, but I have had negative feedback in the past, and I think I deflected it with humor from what I can remember. I just like made jokes about it and was like this, why do I have to stay silent and like suck it up and be the bigger person? And if they insulted me, I'd be like, well, I'll insult you.
Okay.
I do feel a bit guilty about it, but
Do you think when you're writing poetry, that some of the stuff that you do is better than other of the stuff that you do, and are you aspiring
Yeah.
to make more better stuff and less good stuff?
Yeah, I do like think someone's better than others. Like I won't post it if I don't think it's good. But I will keep it for like sentimental reasons. But um yeah, I wish to make more good stuff in the future, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, against what standard are you evaluating quality of what you produce? Like, if it's popular, does that mean it's necessarily good? Are some things that people like more the ones that you think are worse than the things that people like better? Or do you say, like, well, this is the most accomplished technically, so I'm the most proud of this? Or, like, what kind of standard are you using?
Um I haven't thought too much about it, but um I'd say be by this. I think I do find my thought pattern going to like with that police thing, for instance. The reason I was so paralyzed is I was thinking into the future. And I was like, well, you're probably not going to perform well in this. Other people will say judge you and not perform, thinking you're not performing as well, or something like that. So I think it's based off how other would judge I'm performing well. So because sometimes I'll think I'm doing a good piece of work, and then all it takes is like my friend criticized this piece I drew of him, said something like it was cross-eyed or something. And I got really hurt by it, and then I felt like it was really bad. So I do value people's opinions a lot when it comes to my work, I think.
Okay. Um, okay. So let's do some extroverted intuition tests here. There are. Here's a little story, very quick little story. There are two creatures. One of them is a mouse, one of them is a rabbit. And they have been strolling along beside one another, chatting. And all of a sudden they realize they're no longer in the forest. And in fact, they've walked down an alleyway in a nearby town and they're staring at a brick wall.
Mm.
And they look at each other and go, now what? Now, can you give me three different endings from the story, for the story here, that are very different from each other?
Okay. They stay stuck and they can't get past the wall. They hop over the wall and, or they go back and find themselves in the woods
Okay.
again.
Okay,
So
cool. So they either get past the wall,
yeah, go and find something new
or they go
on
back
the
to
other
the
side of the
woods.
wall.
They go back to the
Yeah.
woods. And what's the third one?
They stay there stuck, like blocked by the
Just
wall.
stay there
Don't know what to do.
forever, indefinitely. Okay, gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you to self-report about your values. So these first
Okay.
questions are going to be about which value do you think it's more important for you to uphold in the world, not for other people to uphold. Okay. Then I'll ask it the other way. So first, these questions are about which one do you think is more important for you to uphold? Do you think it's more important for you to be
Yeah.
reliable or fair?
Reliable,
Okay. How about creative or polite?
mm, creative,
Okay. How about creative or reliable?
reliable,
Okay. How about reliable or impactful?
mm. Like depends in what impact. Reliable,
Okay. How about reliable or efficient?
efficient,
How about efficient or kind?
mm, efficient,
Okay. Um, how about kind? How about authentic or graceful?
Authentic.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask the same kind of questions, but this time I want you to think about it in terms of what you expect other people to provide for you. So, in
The
other
value.
words, yeah. So, what I'm asking is value. Basically, I'm saying if somebody's going to treat you either unfairly or unkindly, which do you
Mm.
prefer they treat you as? Let's start with that one.
Okay. Okay. Something unkindly was that?
Yeah. So, it's if someone's going to treat you either unfairly or unkindly,
Mm.
which would you prefer?
Um, unkindly.
Okay. How about if someone's going to be socially awkward in dealing with you or unreliable in dealing with you?
What determines reliable dealing with me?
Well, so for example, I, I was unreliable in the sense that what what you expected, the expectation I set up for this is that you'd get an email within like 48 hours or so of PayPaling me,
Mm.
and you didn't get one. So in that regard, I was unreliable. But I explained to you what had
Mm.
happened, which is first that you were right. I didn't email you for some reason because I searched my
Mm.
email to see. Just I'm like I'm sure I must have emailed this lady, but I remember that day I did all those PayPal's that came in at once because people tend to like
Mm.
they arrive in clumps, and then there'd be a couple days where
Mm.
nobody gets one. Anyway, so but I searched my email, I couldn't find your email address, and then I emailed you. You are correct about this. I didn't do this. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why that happened or how that happened, but here's my normal email I send. And then I still wanted to know what the hell happened. So I found in my email that I had sent it to. I left out a letter from. I don't know how that
B.
happened. Yeah, I left out B,
Yeah.
but I don't even know how that happened because normally I just copy and paste the thing. So
Mm.
anyway, the point is, in that case, I was unreliable, or demonstrably unreliable from a third party's perspective, and also socially graceful about it in the sense that I acknowledged I had made a mistake and tried to explain
Mm.
to you why or how or something.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about the difference.
So would I prefer gracefulness or reliability?
Yeah.
I think I'd prefer reliability.
Okay. And how about if somebody is going to either be engaged with you, like in one scenario they engage with you rarely. When they do, it has a big positive impact on you. In the other scenario, they engage with you regularly, and each time has a small positive impact on you. On balance, both have the same total quantity of positive impact, but which style of being impacted do you prefer?
Rarely.
Okay.
I feel like if it was consistent, you'd begin to undervalue it,
Okay.
like because it's no longer scarce.
Right. Okay. Can you tell me about how whether like do you the extent to which you see yourself as different from childhood, adolescence, now? Have you
Mm.
changed in notable ways, or just got a bigger version of yourself?
Changed in notable ways.
Okay, how did you used to be different?
Well, when I was a child, I think very young, I used to be a lot more obedient, um, and quiet, but also extroverted. Like I was very curious, like, openly. As a teenager, I was rebellious, angry. I wasn't as obedient. Um,
What?
and now I'd say I'm kind of a weird in between, where
Okay.
where yeah, but I see a lot of change.
What were you rebelling against, or what made you not not want to? What made you rock the boat when you were a teenager?
Honestly, I think it's because I tried the obedience and it didn't work. It didn't make me feel safe. I felt like it just made me vulnerable to being used. Um, Instead of, it protecting me, like for instance, the school system state you follow these rules and you will be safe. But instead, there was an instance where I was used as like a scapegoat in a particular situation, even though I was like such an obedient, good student. And they let the naughty child off. So then I went in the complete opposite way. And I was like, well, I'm just going to say how I feel and do what I want, like,
And
because I
so,
could protect me and you can't.
when that happened, did you call it out at the time, or did you call it out later, or did you just seethe with like, well, that's an injustice I have to bear?
I think I ingested it. It just affected me.
Okay. And as school progressed beyond that point, did you continue to have more instances of causing you to become disillusioned? Like, did
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit embarrassing looking back. I was way too rebellious and opinionated and righteous even.
okay,
To a point where I'd go against my own morals and just like shove them down people's throat when I was unhealthy.
okay. So what were the things you were telling people in such an assertive fashion?
Don't belittle this person, but in a very belittling way, for instance.
Okay,
Like it often regard defending the underdog or something, or someone I felt was being taken advantage of, like, like I was, I guess.
okay. So when you say taken advantage of for being obedient, do you feel as though
Yeah.
in that example of the school that they sought out somebody they thought wasn't going to push back against this bullshit, and that's why you link it
No, I
to?
think it's because, do you mean because, as to why they ignored me? Because they felt like I wasn't going to push back,
Well,
or the other person?
no, I'm saying, do you think they chose you because you were obedient as the scapegoat? That they
Right.
factored that in when making a decision.
Yeah, because I was quiet. And whereas the naughty child had more of an influence and more of an opinion and would probably stir something up.
Okay, and so they were in that instance. I understand how they were taking advantage of your compliance, but
Yeah,
what did you feel in general that school asking you to do schoolwork was taking advantage of your compliance?
to a degree. Yeah, I think when it's in a way where it disadvantages the person, like their individuality, or for instance, like creativity, like with art class, they just expect you to dish out work because it's what the system says to do, despite it not being best for you or the subject really. Thus, then
So,
I yeah.
if you were going to teach art in school, how would you do it differently?
Mm. I think I know it's expensive, so I don't think it's realistic, and I understand why the system is the way that it is. But perhaps more one-to-one, I think would be good. Smaller groups, less generalization, less shoving a one system down many of people's throat or one way of doing things,
Okay.
and a bit more expression,
What kind of work do you like to do?
like job-wise for money.
Sure, or and then also presumably work that you consider work even though it's not job like for money. There's sort of like three levels, right? There's employment kind of work. There's
Mm,
your personal projects work, and then there's not work at all. There's just play. It's like,
yeah.
I watch TV or something.
Well, I don't think I do work outside of work. If For me, there's just one or the other. It's either works or something that I'm just kind of forced to do. I guess, and then the rest is playtime. Some I choose to.
All
So
right,
for work, I
go
don't
ahead.
really choose it.
Well, when you're at work, presumably you've got to do. There's almost always many components to a single job. Some of which we like better than
Mm.
others. Like I never liked dealing with emails because I had to when I was director or something. I'd much rather make curriculum than deal with emails because when I deal with emails, I have to fe people. I have to be like, um,
Mhm.
just dropping you a note to touch base on this matter. You get to talk like that and do all that shit.
Yeah.
So, which
I'm a
parts of the
cafe
job do you
assistant.
like better, and which parts do you like worse? Is the question. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm a cafe assistant. I say the worst part, which is kind of like most of the job, is like being the customer service. I prefer the more alone work. Like there's parts where we do the back work in the back, like setting up of the party rather than hosting the party. Um, Cleaning the cafe rather than dealing with the people in the cafe is that like kind of alone work rather than working with the people. I prefer.
Okay, and is that because the people are unreasonable in some way? Like, do they are they rude to you or?
No, it's just because I have to perform a certain way. I have to be a certain way. I expect it to be a certain way. Especially, I found I've really struggled with the fact that you feel like you're not really allowed any boundaries in customer service. You have to constantly smile and be nice to these people, even when they're nasty. It
Okay,
helps to have a nice customer, but I don't like the fact that it's something that's expected of me all the time, even if it's not in my favor. Like it doesn't do me any good.
okay. So, when we talked about how you change from little kid to teenager to adult, being somewhat in between, if you were to extrapolate that growth arc out, describe yourself like 10 years from now and looking back at yourself now and say, here's what, here's what, here's what's coming. Like, here's how you're going to be continuing to change self.
Mm. I'd assume I'd become a lot more tolerable, but not in a way that's obedient. Like it'd be like a nice in between. Like I'd become more balanced. It wouldn't be so extreme, like either obedience or rebellion. I'm getting there now, but I still like have a lot of those extremes sometimes.
So when you say tolerable,
But I think I just
did you
get
mean
older.
tolerant or did you mean tolerable? Because if you're saying more tolerable, like you're saying I'm people find me insufferable or intolerable, or if you mean like tolerant, you're saying you find other people intolerable.
Um, I'd become more tolerable to myself, not because I hate myself or anything, but because the way everything affects you, you are a part of your experience, right? So um, I'd be able to, I'd be more tolerant to the way I experience things. I'd be more, I'd be able
Okay,
to, I don't know,
so you're saying
I'd have a
you're
healthier way of dealing with things, perhaps.
okay. So when you deal with things in an unhealthy way, and you sort of come back home later and you say, "Oh gosh, I didn't deal with that well." Is it? I mean, how long does it take you to come to that realization? And what's generally the problem?
Um, Usually I know it was bad whilst I'm doing it. Like I know I'm going to regret it later.
Okay,
Um,
so why do you think you
but it's
did it
like
anyway?
because of emotion, probably. Like I thought, um, stuff sitting here and dealing with my emotions in a healthy way, it'd be more quicker to do it this way. Um, yeah.
So, like, do
But
you
then I'd regret
yell
it
at
because
people or something?
mm, I just have a tendency to get quite defensive, out of fear and things, especially when it comes to criticism that I mentioned and things. Um, yeah.
Okay. Um, and does the defensiveness take the form of attacking the other person, like saying,
Tends to, yeah.
yeah, okay, gotcha. All right. Well, that's pretty self-aware. Okay, so I I think I have a typing for you, but
Okay.
let me just sort of review in my head if there's anything other that I want to just double check here before I tell you.
This has been fun. The hour's gone fast.
Hmm. Okay, well, actually, that's a good way. That reminds me of something I generally I started to ask towards the end of typing sessions, but then forgot about it until you just said that, which is there is there something that you thought you wanted to convey about yourself before coming into this typing session that didn't get talked about or you didn't get to convey over the course of it?
Um, no, because I don't know where you place me, so I don't know what you haven't seen
Hmm.
or what you're missing, so I don't know.
Okay. Okay. So how do you feel emotionally right now?
Anxious a little bit, but in a good way now, rather than scared, just a little nervous.
Okay. And how do you feel physically right now? Any aches and pains, stiff neck, anything like that?
Um, no, I
Okay.
just feel hungry, I guess, a bit shaky.
And before you started this, did you make sure you had picked a comfortable chair, or did you not pay attention to that, or do you always do it from this place and it's the same chair all the time, or something?
I wanted the lighting to be good, so I considered that factor. Because the artificial lighting's not good. Um, but seating wise, no. I've got like a very broken crickety stool that I'm
Okay.
sitting on. It's not comfortable. My butt is,
Is it easy for you to ignore that?
yeah.
Okay,
I
cool.
only noticed just now.
So, do people ever when you do get quote unquote defensive, did people
Mm.
push back against that by saying you're not being logical or rational? Do they push back by saying you're not you're not being emotionally stable enough, or do they say like what like how do you know that you are in fact overreacting, so to speak?
Um, because I can see the person's reaction that I've hurt them. So it's not necessarily that I think of overreacting. I just think I could have dealt with things in a better way without hurting the person. I could have expressed it in a way that's not harmful. And it's harmful to me as well. So, like, I could have just done better for both of us.
Is it harmful to you because you feel guilty about it later?
No, because I've hurt the feelings. Like, I can see it on the face, for instance.
But why is
And then
that?
I like,
But where's the harm to you come from?
uh, well, it harms me because later on I'm gonna regret it and think I could have dealt with things better. And I do. I regret it almost immediately. And
Okay,
then it kind of defeats the purpose of doing it anyway, so because I don't feel any better.
I see. And then if you apologize, does that make you feel better, or do you still regret it?
Yeah, I feel better. But yeah, pretty much after apologizing, I say I feel pretty good, actually. I'd be able to move on knowing that I did what I did. I've apologized and I just have to do better in the future. So that made me feel better.
Are you quick to apologize, or is that a long, slow process of getting yourself there?
It's a bit of a slow process because I have to feel safe enough, I guess, to come forth and apologize. Because
So,
if my apology is not going to do anything, like if it's not going to improve the situation, and if you're just going to use it as a way to insult me back, then it's not really going to do anything, is it? It's just going to put us back in the same situation.
well, if somebody does that, that qualifies as toxic. That's not. There's no. That's not a healthy expression of an alternative way of thinking. If you take somebody else's apology and use it against them,
Hmm.
then you're not being
Yeah,
a discursively. You're not being
to make them feel
discursively
bad.
a team player. Basically, in other words, you're holding everybody to a standard of perfection rather than
Yeah,
accountability. And people can't be held to a standard of perfection, only to a standard of accountability. So don't. If people do that, that's not.
I think that's self-projection then, to be honest.
But some people do that. Do that. But I just want to make that clear that that's never okay to do that. If you admit you're wrong and apologize and stuff, the job of
Mm.
the other person is to either say, "Well, I'm sorry, I just can't get over this. I can't accept your apology," and then that's the end of it. Or their job is to say,
Yeah,
"Okay, fine. I'm still pissed, but whatever. I guess you at least are accountable for it." So they have one of those two jobs. They
yeah,
can't they can't
yeah,
they can't take your apology and then continue to use it against you. And that's fucking toxic BPD shit. Okay. Anyway, so I'm gonna tell you your type, and I am
okay,
expecting that I might get a little bit of pushback, or you might not like this type particularly, but I
okay,
believe you to be an ESFP.
okay. No, I thought might be an ISFP, so
Oh, okay, cool. The reason I think you're an ESFP is because the TI test came up polar, and they came out what you call
mm,
classic polar, which is the reasoning why you weren't when you provide reasoning about it was that the premises weren't actually factually true. And then additionally you said about your family members, well, I don't have a lot of those kind of family members, so I'm not sure what that's called or whatever. That's also as well as with the dollops and the pogos and stuff, those things are ways to test whether you treat words like representations of what they mean, or you treat them like variables that are interchangeable. The latter is TI, the former is
yeah.
FI, and then you would appear to be FI tool, and the absolute values resonate as such too. Reliability and
Mm,
efficiency are SI and TE, which are 3 5, and then fairness is 7. Now, the one that you didn't seem
mm,
to explicitly value as much as one might expect, given it's the dominant, is impactfulness. But that's because our dominant function is so native to us that it's almost like we don't think it needs defending as a value. So,
mm.
so
Okay.
that's how I account
Yeah,
for
like
that.
it's like you're kind of swimming in it.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Okay.
basically everything else seems to test out for ESFP. I would point out that you don't have the conventional stereotypical affect of one at all. Your affect is more of an introverted person's
Mm,
affect, but I still am
mm,
quite convinced that I've got this one right.
mm. Okay. Um, that's interesting because I either thought I was an INFP or an ISFP, which is introverted, like you said, it might be leaning there. And I was just they're both FI DOM. So do you think it's because I use that tool a lot, and because I'm swimming in the SE that I don't see it? So I'm like, I'm FI.
Yeah, and also because SE is inherently resistant to abstraction. So if you're an SE DOM, it just seems like, well, that's not even hardly paying attention what I'm doing. I'm just doing things, whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's often said that people will identify at first, at least, more strongly with their tool function. The thing is, it's actually operational for you, which means that you're trying to avoid doing things that are going to make you feel bad later. And you're trying
Mm,
to do things that make you feel good. And so that makes it like
Mm.
you've got a better sense of.
Sorry, someone coming in. No, no. Yeah, okay. Sorry, that's my mum. I'm just going to let my cat in. It's a
No problem.
story.
No problem.
No nice.
So
Hello, I'm back.
okay, so basically, you've got a lot of clarity about how things that you do will make you feel. And that clarity is going to naturally make one feel introverted because it's a slow clarity because it's FI. Like I
Mm.
have very little ability to calculate how what I do now is going to make me feel later. I don't usually
Mm.
realize that I've done something that I feel bad about until a good stretch of time after, depending on how bad it was. It could be a couple of hours or a couple of days and then I start feeling guilty about it. It takes me a long time to process it. So I have the opposite polar as you do, which is I can do those pogo dollop questions, but I can't figure out whether I want to. and
Mm.
and
Okay.
or and or how anything is going to make me feel later, which is why I've historically, for example, stayed in bad relationships or made bad relationship choices because I don't consider how I'm going to feel about it to be a relevant factor in things.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. So okay, that's I'll
Do you
stop.
consider
Go ahead.
does TI is your tool function, right? Do you instead of it being about how you'll feel about it later, is it about how you'll think about it later?
Well, that's
Something like that.
the nice thing about TI. What makes it low resolution, easier to process, is that it doesn't have that dynamic quality to it. If something's correct now, it's correct indefinitely until it's made incorrect. So,
Mm.
in other words, everything has in the real world shit like what's it called erodes in the weather, but we don't necessarily notice it because it's happening slower than our eyes are noticing the change. It's like it happens at a slower time space speed or whatever. Well, it's like that with TI. Correctness does change over time, gradually, but from our
Mm.
our time frame, it doesn't appear to be
Continuum,
changing.
yeah.
So we don't have to really
Mm.
worry about whether we're going to be right later. If I'm right now, I am right later as well, unless some new information comes in here in between, in which case I'll become right then, and then I'll still be right later.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll stop this video. Do you want me to share it with you privately, or are you comfortable with me publishing?
Um, publish it.
All right, cool. I'll publish it right now then, and you premiere it in about by about noon. It'll be premiering in about 45 minutes. Is the longest. It's how long it takes to upload it and do all
All
the
right,
stuff.
okay.
Okay, and then
Mm.
if you want to watch it, you'll be able to see people in the chat comment on the typing as it's going along
Mm.
and offer their thoughts, and probably at least until I get to the TI questions, I don't think anybody's going to be guessing where I ended up at. So it should be an interesting one
Mm.
to see how it plays out with the chat.
Why do you think it was it difficult to type me? Is
No,
that why?
no. It would have been difficult to type you without the TI questions. Until I got to the TI
Mm.
questions, I wasn't sure what I was looking at. I could tell you were NI and not NE or SI. So I mean, I could tell you were, yeah, I could tell you were introverted intuition rather than introverted sensing as a knowing function, just because of the generalities approach towards things and the lack of
Mm.
specific anecdotes and a variety of other reasons. So I knew you were somewhere NI on the front stack, and then that was about all I knew until I asked the TI questions, which locked it down pretty clearly because that's as textbook as it gets.
Okay.
Okay.
Is my TI really that bad?
I mean, that's the thing. It's not bad any more than my FI is bad. It's just not how you pay attention. So it's like it's my FI is an absolute value for me, and TI is an absolute value for you. You value fairness; it's important to you. I value me authentically getting all emotional about shit, which happens all the time, right? But I just don't. I can only I just experience it in real time. I don't understand it or use it consciously as a way of paying attention to the world across time at all. So, that's why, like, if you're FI polar, you might be like my daughter, who one time she's also FI polar. She's ESTP instead of being ATP. Anyway, we got this mail at the old house that was addressed to our cat, and she burst into tears when she saw it. And the reason was she couldn't exactly explain it. It's just seeing the cat get a piece of mail made me very emotional. And of course I laughed at her like, why are you crying about that? She's like, I don't know. And of course then she's done crying in a second and it's all past. It's like when you're at bipolar, you can have fights and shit, and then as long as you reach agreement at the end, the feelings don't linger at all. So there's that advantage. But the disadvantage is TI does deal with low resolution data. We don't get to really understand or parse or decide things on what's rich and juicy and high resolution, namely your experiencing of legitimacy as a particularist personal experience, which is how FI deals with legitimacy, is a richer way of living ultimately. It's like TI people get to be right, but they also get to not know who they are and a lot of other kind of difficult things about being TI.
Okay.
All right, cool. So I'll stop this recording and upload this right now.